Let me tell you about Icarus the first. Wings 6 wide, free from the earth. Took to the skies, flew too high, till his waxen wings burnt. Swallowed by the sea, down went his dreams. Feeling sorry for the Icarus legacy. That was that, don't look back. People said his life was back on track.
The right track.
1,000 hands swing a weightless hammer. Strike the spine hard, not a chance for a dreamer. Different cities breed opportunity to meet the need to seek and see adventure. His life wasn't terrible, was actually kind of bearable, but felt it was missing fuel, missing that spark.
The spark of the skies.
If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
6 years down came his son, Icarus, second one. Not a chance to take flight, robbed before he begun. At age 6 I was Mrs. Ick, why all the questions never stick. What's with Dad's wings, why are they broken? Why does Dad keep all blinds open? I won't tell you what she did, but he never asked again. That kid with tears and eyes forgot the skies and 2 bound down his wings. Studied hard, got a degree, circuitry, wizardry, industrial machinery, security for family. Don't you judge me, you know what it's like to live in a city where the winged don't fly. Where any other way is simply going astray, but then the common sense don't resonate. And all the academies teaching pack mentality. The places that don't, they preach individuality. But what about strategy? The kind that can straight up see. It takes time, practice as well as theory. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
This brings us to Icarus the third. He's the son to an engineer, grandson to a failure, just a product of fear, following Dad's behavior. But IC3 was born different, or was it his environment? Either way, this boy became a force, became deliberate. Spark of light within the heart from the start, telling him fight, raise your sight, look up, you know it's right. 6-day weeks, morning starts, pumping his wings, learning the art, flying the hills. Nobody saw him honing his skills. Boy was drawing on something real old, something still real, something once lost, something now healed. We didn't end, the need to defy. Still we ask, how can we fly? So he read his father's books on engineering philosophy. There's got to be a way from stopping physics from stopping me. Happened before he knew, sir. Built a heat diffuser. Wax wings did not melt, sir. In a moment he transcended all that we knew. All when he flew, ran his fingers along the sun. It was done, his fight was won. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
Let me tell you about Icarus the first. Wings 6 wide, free from the earth. Took to the skies, flew too high, till his waxen wings burnt. Swallowed by the sea, down went his dreams. Feeling sorry for the Icarus legacy. That was that, don't look back. People said his life was back on track.
The right track.
1,000 hands swing a weightless hammer. Strike the spine hard, not a chance for a dreamer. Different cities breed opportunity to meet the need to seek and see adventure. His life wasn't terrible, was actually kind of bearable, but felt it was missing fuel, missing that spark.
The spark of the skies.
If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
6 years down came his son, Icarus, second one. Not a chance to take flight, robbed before he begun. At age 6 I was Mrs. Ick, why all the questions never stick. What's with Dad's wings, why are they broken? Why does Dad keep all blinds open? I won't tell you what she did, but he never asked again. That kid with tears and eyes forgot the skies and 2 bound down his wings. Studied hard, got a degree, circuitry, wizardry, industrial machinery, security for family. Don't you judge me, you know what it's like to live in a city where the wings don't fly. Where any other way is simply going astray, but then the common sense don't resonate. And all the academies teaching pack mentality. The places that don't, they preach individuality. But what about strategy? The kind that can straight up see. It takes time, practice as well as theory. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
This brings us to Icarus the third. He's the son to an engineer, grandson to a failure, just a product of fear, following Dad's behavior. But IC3 was born different, or was it his environment? Either way, this boy became a force, became deliberate. Spark of light within the heart from the start, telling him fight, raise your sight, look up, you know it's right. 6-day weeks, morning starts, pumping his wings, learning the art, flying the hills. Nobody saw him honing his skills. Boy was drawing on something real old, something still real, something once lost, something now healed. We didn't end, the need to defy. Still we ask, how can we fly? So he read his father's books on engineering philosophy. There's got to be a way from stopping physics from stopping me. Happened before he knew, sir. Built a heat diffuser. Wax wings did not melt, sir. In a moment he transcended all that we knew. All when he flew, ran his fingers along the sun. It was done, his fight was won. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
Let me tell you about Icarus the first. Wings 6 wide, free from the earth. Took to the skies, flew too high, till his waxen wings burnt. Swallowed by the sea, down went his dreams. Feeling sorry for the Icarus legacy. That was that, don't look back. People said his life was back on track.
The right track.
1,000 hands swing a weightless hammer. Strike the spine hard, not a chance for a dreamer. Different cities breed opportunity to meet the need to seek and see adventure. His life wasn't terrible, was actually kind of bearable, but felt it was missing fuel, missing that spark.
The spark of the skies.
If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true. If I get close without burning, I could walk the skies, flow with the grand stirring. Just gotta see that commitment to earning fruits of the discipline to know true.
Freedom.
6 years down came his son, Icarus, second one. Not a chance to take flight, robbed before he begun. At age 6 I was Mrs. Why all the questions never stick. What's with Dad's wings, why are they broken? Why does Dad keep all blinds open? I won't tell you what she did, but he never asked again. That kid with tears and eyes forgot the skies and 2 bound down his wings. Studied hard, got a degree, circuitry, wizardry, industrial machinery, security for family. Don't you judge me, you know what it's like to live in a city where the wings don't fly. Hello, welcome guys. Happy Saturday midday today. Usually morning, but today we've had to postpone to midday, so happy Saturday midday. Hope you're going well. Hope you've been doing some kind of music stuff, exploration, composition, production, mixing, mastering, or just doodling around. Something fun. As long as you're having fun with it, that would be good. So today I thought we would look at something a little bit different. And it's different to the production side. Today we're going to be looking at music notation and the composition side. And that's partly because this week in particular, I haven't had a lot of time to do my own compositions, but the little bits I've had, I've been trying a, let's say, new approach that I want to get a bit better at, which is basically focusing on the actual composition side first before production. Now, what do I mean by that? To kind of understand this, you've got to look at the different stages of creating music in the digital world. As number one, you've got composition. That's where you actually write the music and the actual melodies and the harmonies and sometimes what you want the drums to sound like. We're talking pitch, we're talking rhythm, all the kind of core melody, harmony, the core song. And if you're looking at the screen in front of you, you'll see that I've got some sheet music here, some notation. So we're talking about the core. So after the composition stage, then you've kind of got the production stage. And that's where you kind of put it into a digital audio workstation, such as Studio One I've been using, or FL Studio, or Ableton Live is one that a lot of people use, or Pro Tools is used a lot in the industry for collaboration. That's where you have more control over the sounds themselves. So that's where you can kind of craft which frequencies you want to hear and which ones you don't want to. Can put on a lot more effects like distortion and delay pedals and flanges and flux capacitors and whatever else you want to put on. And you can actually just make music straight into that, which is what I've been doing for most of my career actually. And then after that you have the mixing and mastering stage, which is really polishing the sound once it's all in there. But the reason I've kind of gone back to actually getting better at, like, as you can see, the sheet music and the core composition, there's a few reasons for it. One of the biggest ones is because I think it almost, in theory, will force me to get the actual core melodies and harmonies expressing what I'm trying to express first, because it's really easy to get distracted by all the little bells and whistles and plugins, special effects and stuff like that in digital audio workstations. And it's easy enough these days to actually spend all your time just searching for new plugins, and I've definitely been guilty of that. So actually making music, yeah, this is a good way to start. The other thing too is like, if you can learn to read sheet music, it's not essential for making music these days, but what it does open up is your ability to look at the scores of other composers, or whether it's just, people on musescore.com who have done their own transcriptions of video game music, or whether it's actually the full orchestral scores of real-world composers, past and present. It means that you can actually read through them and you can actually get a really good sense of what's actually going on. And one thing I think sheet music almost does better is it's kind of, once you kind of learn the language of it, it lets you kind of see connections between different things a little bit better than just a piano roll on your music software, of your like digital audio workstation. And just as a side note, that's why we have different terms such as composers and producers, and audio engineers and things like that. There's so much gray area between all of them, especially composers and producers. They both write the music most of the time, but generally speaking, composers are more geared towards working with live instruments and sheet music, and producers are more using computers to create sound effects and sequencing their melodies and harmonies that way. Anyway, so this is the one thing that I have had some time to work on over the last week. So I figured what we'll do today is take a look at this, and I'll basically just keep working on it and talk through some of the things I've done here, composition-wise, and what I plan to do. But before I play this, I just want to show you this piece. So far is called The Night Apartments. The architecture bit is because I'm trying to think about it architecturally, as in plan out the structure of the whole piece first before I write the notes, kind of thing. But this was actually inspired by a random picture I saw, and I'll just bring this up. So we're just on YouTube here. This picture. So this, I don't know if this is from a specific video game, but this is a 3D model from a video game of some night apartments. I was just looking through, funnily enough, architecture in video games, just seeing, what people are doing, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there. And I saw this one, and it kind of just hit me with a mood, which is, props to whoever created this. You're conveying the real atmosphere and mood of this place well. And I wanted to then kind of write some music that would be inspired by that mood and hopefully convey that mood. And in a lot of ways, I think when I'm composing music here, I'm doing so, for me personally, it's having a scene or a place in a movie or a video game in mind. I grew up a lot on video games and movies, so that's why you don't hear me making a lot of pop music, but rather a lot of soundtrack music. It's kind of more the world my brain's geared towards these days. So yeah, I saw this picture and started writing The Night Apartments. So I'm just going to play through what I got so far. This is probably after 3 or 4 hours, let's say. Definitely not finished, but here is the core so far. yeah, so that's the night apartments so far. And I just got to say a shout out to Thiago Klafke, hopefully that's your name, how to pronounce it properly, who looks like they made this picture. So yeah, that's cool. It's inspired me to make music. Good work. So yeah, if you're into the video game world, you might hear a lot of influences there. I think while I've been writing this and seeing that picture, I've been thinking a lot of video games such as Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, where you're a lawyer that has to snoop around apartments finding evidence and things like that. Also a lot of mystery games where you're trying to solve crimes and often go to apartments like this. And there's that real sense of mystery and that kind of brooding atmosphere. So just for a general structure of what we've got so far, to break it down. So you've basically got this intro bit, which is kind of bluesy sounding. You can see I have a note here that says blues bass line. I'll just see. Yeah, blues bass lines here. So I typed these notes before I even put down any musical notation. So I wanted to start off with something blues sounding. So in fact, I actually just started with, if I can just grab these chords up top, they are probably the most recent addition. So originally, this was the very first thing I wrote in this. Yeah, so it's really just a very basic blues sounding simple melody. It's almost too stereotypical. But then, yeah, like I said, just recently I've been adding some chords up here in the treble area. So treble clef, the top one, and bass clef, the bottom one. So if treble, bass, if you're playing on piano, treble is your right hand, bass is your left hand. And just as not even a side note, so the reason I'm doing it entirely on piano at the moment is not because I want it to be entirely on piano. It's almost taking a reductionistic approach where you kind of try and make it sound good on the most basic instrument, let's say. Not saying that pianos are a basic instrument, but they're very powerful. But if you can make it sound good on something like a piano, you can make it sound really good when you flesh it out into a full orchestra or different synthesizers or singers or whatever you want. I find like great melodies and harmonies, it almost doesn't matter what you play them on, it still sounds good. So, which is another reason for doing the composition first before you get too lost in the sound design world. Anyway, so we've got that blues bass line, but it's actually kind of the melody here with some chords over the top. So if we just look at these chords, and I am going to fill them out to the end, but this is as far as I got before the stream started. We just start here. They're kind of just adding atmosphere over the top and a little bit of counter rhythm or emphasizing certain notes or beats. You can see these little squiggly lines up and down here. Those are, if we look here, those are arpeggios, up or down. But basically, in terms of piano, it just means when you're playing the chord, rather than playing all the notes at the exact same time, you kind of like roll your fingers up. And it gives that cool, arpeggio sound, or like kind of a little more magical. And you can see some of these have the little staccato dot above them, which basically means playing them quickly and not letting them ring out too much. So a lot of those little things are articulations that, or techniques that, I won't think too much about at this stage, but like if I have thoughts about it as I'm going through, I'll add them in just to make sure it's sounding pretty cool. The other thing as well is because I know I'm going to put this into a digital audio workstation after this and start fleshing out the instruments a bit more. I'm not going to spend too long getting all the articulations exactly perfect here because not all of them will translate across through the files exactly. A lot of that I'll probably have to do manually through automations or just fixing up where notes sit a bit more manually. But yeah. So we've got that first section. And what we'll see here is basically, so far it's almost split into 3 sections, and those 3 sections then repeat. So we've got this first section, which is that bluesy bit with the chords over the top. Then we have this real arpeggio section with these stronger chords in the bass. And that's when it actually switches from like a bluesy scale to A minor. We're in, no sharps or flats, so we're in A minor. And then the third section is what I'm calling the chorus, the climaxy bit. And so then you might have noticed, after the chorus, and actually the chorus has a key change halfway through. So we're staying in A minor here, and then so you might be able to hear it, or you can see it here in the sheet music. We've got a key change here. This is going to, I believe it's D minor, and I'll just check my circle of fifths here because I don't know it off by heart. Another great thing with the internet. So A minor, key changing to D minor, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a sec. But so those are our 3 major sections, and then it repeats. However, the verse or that intro bit on the second time is actually different. And it may sound similar. Probably the similarity is that, again, we're now back into, it's keyed as A minor again, but we're actually using like a bluesy kind of scale. Probably it's more the rhythms there that give it that bluesy feel, I think. And then we go back to the arpeggios here. And then we go back to the chorus and the key change, and then so far just end on this one MF note. And MF does not stand for what you think it stands for. It stands for mezzo forte, I think it is, which is like kind of loud. Anyway, so we can get into the nitty gritty a bit more. I've already talked about this first section here, how that's done. So then if we move to the arpeggios, this wasn't something I was originally planning to put in, but as I was listening to it, I could just hear it in my head, especially after these last few notes. It kind of comes down, kind of like it reaches the, I believe that's the tonic there. That would be the A. Oh yeah, of course. So A and A minor. Reaches the tonic there. So you've got that sense of coming home after here. But like what I liked here and what I could kind of hear in my head when I was trying to do this is that the moment that you have like come home, you've got these arpeggios starting up top, which are just a chord that's broken up, a triad that's just broken up and repeating. And often I find these kind of arpeggios, I reckon I hear them more in a lot of like thriller soundtracks. It's kind of got that very like clockwork effect. It's very ticking. Often in movies, those kind of things seem to be associated with characters that are a bit more calculating, or with thriller soundtracks, often mysteries, because they're all about kind of the intellectual side of things. It's almost like this technique symbol that's probably for a lot of us has been associated with that kind of mystery, technical, intellectual, technical problem-solving mood. Even if you go watch what is it? Watchmen, the movie by Zack Snyder. And if you listen to the soundtrack moments of Dr. Manhattan, the big blue naked dude with superpowers, as they're telling his backstory, listen to the music and you'll hear a lot of these kind of arpeggio kind of things. And so the soundtrack for that particular bit was actually it was two different compositions from the composer Philip Glass, who he was one of the big minimalist composers in the 20th century. He's done so many soundtracks. I think he might still be going, actually. But that's kind of one of his signature sounds, is having those arpeggios. And he does some cool stuff where he does different kind of arpeggio rhythms over each other. And yeah, go listen to it. But it has that very kind of clockwork sound. And going back to Dr. Manhattan, his most prized possession is like this clock, and he grew up fixing clocks for his dad, and it's all part of his character. So yeah, so going back to the Night Apartments, that's probably why I felt it fit well. It was kind of half intuitive, but now I kind of have a bit more of the technical know-how why it's doing what it's doing. So also, one thing you might notice that I tend to do a bit is not always have the strong beats exactly on the start of the bar. So we do here. Actually, no, we don't here, sorry. It starts one beat early. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 4. 1, 2, 4. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so most of it, it's the fourth beat that is the strong one, where it switches to the new chord. And that's just something I like the sound of. But then here it goes back to the first beat, which is probably a bit more traditional, conservative. Yeah, so what's happening here is, so this is actually essentially repeating what we've just heard. But then these arpeggios, every few notes I'm adding in, or I'm changing certain notes, so it actually kind of forms this melody that's kind of interwoven in with the arpeggio. And that's something I personally really like the sound of, and you'll probably hear me do a whole lot as well. So if we just listen to this. Yeah, so you can hear we could take out some of these notes and we'd be left with a melody. In fact, if we just try that. Oh, actually, no, this is not going to... I've got to turn them to rests really quickly. So if we did something like this, for example... Yeah, so you can kind of hear that the melody is there, but the arpeggio is ticking along every single, eighth note here. And to me, that just adds a little bit more emotion to the otherwise calculating element that we've already got. Meanwhile, the bass is pretty much doing the same thing. I think it's doing the same thing. And it also, it starts quite with one and then two notes, the bass, what we're talking about here. And then you get to points where you even have three notes. Just to kind of make it thicker as you go on, to raise that intensity a little bit. Music's all about tension, release, intensity, relaxation, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have it ebbing and flowing, or depending on your style, you have it like stuttering or like scaring people, or doing something unexpected, or building expectations and then subverting them. All these cool things you do to people's minds to take them on a cool little audio ride. And then I'm gonna put something here. Haven't figured out what yet. Then we get to the chorus. Just one thing, if it is sounding a bit mechanical at the moment, that is part of using music notation software. And I'm using Notion here, which is by PreSonus. And part of the reason I'm doing that is for its integration with Studio One. But however, with notation software, if you're interested in getting into it and you haven't used it before, I'd recommend checking out MuseScore. That's some free software. It does pretty more or less as much as what most of the bought packages do. And it's only getting bigger because I think it's open source. So more and more people were contributing to it, adding features, and there's a great community around it. Notion, I've only been using for a week or two. I find it's kind of very sleek and it kind of just works quickly, which I like. It also has VST support, meaning you can bring in your own external instruments, but also the default sound library of the instruments in Notion is quite good sounding, a bit more real sounding than maybe MuseScore or even Sibelius, to be honest. Sibelius is probably the big industry standard at the moment. There's also Dorico and Finale, I think, is the other one, which I've never used. But yeah, Sibelius is probably, from my experience, it's the big powerhouse one. But it can feel a little clunky navigation-wise until you like spend a long time learning it. So I'm happy with Notion for now, actually. But yeah, so if things are sounding a little mechanical, that's just part of the nature of when you're composing in a notation software. Again, like if you want to do some really more authentic sounding stuff, once you're done with the composition here, or you can just skip straight to this, you start doing your production in Ableton Live, FL Studio, Cubase, Reaper, Logic. Apple's Logic is really powerful. Any of those. Studio One is the one I'm using. That's where you can really kind of specifically program in, the volume of things, how things fade in and out, and make sure that every note is where you want it and sounding real and all that kind of stuff. And if you check out some of the other live streams or some other videos, either in the past, and we'll be doing some in the future, a lot of it is about doing that sort of stuff, how we can make our instruments sound more human and be a little bit more expressive. So, yeah. So we're up to the chorus. And so we'll just listen to this quickly and I'll go into it a bit. And check your comments at the same time. Hey Chef Ninja, John in my kitchen. Well, hopefully your kitchen's sounding alright now. Hopefully it's got good acoustics too. Hey Catherine, how's it going? Thank you, I'm glad you like the arpeggios. If you have any questions, anyone watching, feel free to put them here in the chat and I'll check that semi-regularly and or if you want me to show you anything in particular, just throw it there. Cool. So what's happening here? You'll notice, and this is probably another one of my own stylistic choices, is that I have less, let's say regular or conservative bass rhythms where I place the kind of big hits. So conservatively, you want to have your big kind of chord changes, bass notes on the first beat of every bar, or strong one on the first, weaker on the second, semi-strong on the third, weaker again on the fourth. That's your kind of conservative way of doing it. And that can sound really good depending on what you do. But
personally, I just like having this kind of thing, where sometimes the beat is like on the upbeat, I believe they call it. So downbeats are the strong ones, upbeats are the weaker ones in between. To have it, some of those big changes slightly off, a bit more syncopated, to me it sounds and feels good. That might even be a personal taste thing, but that's probably contributes a lot to my stylistic sound, which you can really see here, especially here. Doing things like this probably partly comes from, so I started off as a producer in the production world, so a lot more with working with samples and electronic instruments, and so I probably listened to a lot of music which is a bit more glitchy, let's say, and you have a bit more of these stuttering effects where, you know, you could have chords kind of jumping up and down almost faster than a real pianist would play. Now this, a real pianist could play, but you can see I have like these large chord jumps going from this first one to the second one to the first one, and I think that might even be, it's almost like just an octave up with a slightly different voicing, but it gives it that cool like do do do. And then secondly here is this little bit. I'm actually in some ways not doubling the melody, but kind of following the melody in the bass. And so you have these, when you're having like similar movement in both the treble and the bass, or in the upper register and the lower register, it really strengthens the melody in those parts. It's like having two singers singing together in like a duet and singing the same thing, really emphasizes it. And so switching between like chords and then these brief moments of this augmented melody, or augmented, I shouldn't use musical terms here, augmented as in enhancing, not as in an augmented sixth or whatever. Having the changes between chords and those things can just be that really cool variety of switching back and forth. So what I could even do here, so that's going down a tone each time. So I could even do the same here. So what would that sound like? In fact, that sounds really cool. So yeah, so I might leave that because we have that parallel movement between the two voices, you'd say there. Anyway, so as we go through, here's the other thing you'll notice here. So originally it just had it all the same note and it extended there, but we've just changed it. So in this top voice, it's more or less the same note there, which is just that A, which is our tonal center. It's our tonic here at this point. And it's the diversity comes from the rhythm originally. Then it goes down to the G and then back to the A. But then what happens is the second time round, originally I actually just copied and pasted it and then started transforming it, which is actually, it might sound lazy, but it's actually, the more I get into music, the more I find it's actually a really powerful way to do things, because you can keep this sense that it's the same song, and you can have little like fragments or motifs or themes that sound like they're repeating, and it actually builds up the kind of like, let's say, emotional attachment from the audience to the piece. But you don't necessarily want it too repetitive, so you don't just want to copy and paste, but you can copy and paste, but then like change it and change the framework, move notes around a little bit, invert them. I think they call it retrograde, where it goes back to front and all those kinds of things. So I did that, and then I like changed a few bits, and then took out bits, and then listened to what would now sound good, and then put them in. So hopefully this just melody line sounds coherent, like it's one long thing. Yeah, and so and again, it starts with just this one note, this A here, more or less, and then it starts turning into a more kind of vibrant melody where it's going up and down pitches, and but you might be able to see it's following a general same rhythmic pattern here. So if I took this out, and change that to that, you can see that's looks like that. It's like the same thing. That's how I copied and pasted. But then we've started getting the notes moving here and stuff like that. So then I added in a few things to give it more diversity. Same with here, and things moved around, and you start getting the melody a bit more. And it's raising in that, let's say, emotional intensity here. Rather than just intensity, it's more emotional intensity at this point. And then after we hear that, that brings us to probably one of the really cool things here. And that's the key change. Now, so far, what's actually happening is I've actually essentially copied and pasted this whole chorus thing here, but it's changing key. And so what it's doing, and if we go back to that circle of fifths here, is it's originally in A minor, but then we're moving left on the circle of fifths to D minor. Now, the reason I'm using the circle of fifths as a guide is because that helps you know what you can move to that changes the least amount of keys. So basically, if we're in A minor, which is the same as C major, just starting on a different starting note or a different tonic, that's all the white keys on a keyboard. In fact, let me just get this. So A minor, C major, it's all the white keys. D minor or F major is so that's a flat B, flat B. So is this. So basically, D minor uses all the white keys except our B goes down to a B flat. Now, what does that mean? It means that when we're doing this key change, it means that most of the keys are the same. It's just this one moving. And that often creates the smoothest transition between keys. Whereas if we went from A minor here down to D sharp minor, then you can see that there's actually 6 sharps or 6 flats, meaning 6 of those 7 notes would have to shift to the black keys or their flat or sharp counterpoint. And that often creates the most like harsh, disjointed key change, and it often doesn't sound that great. Like anything in music, you can do it well if you spend time kind of setting things up. But yeah, so the real smooth one here is from that A minor to D minor. And that's why. And what I also did to help that transition here was I made it so the A minor melody here, this last bit, sounds like it was going to hit the D note there anyway. So even if we stayed in A minor, I made it sound like the melody was going to land on that D note without a key change. And that also helps create like a smooth key change, because it's like there's less of a harsh line between the A minor and the D minor key. Then it's more like this blending that happens. That first note, that first D that happens could actually be, in fact, if we just do the melody here. So if we listen to this, just the melody side of things. you can't actually hear that key change as much. That's because the Ds here in the second half of what I just played actually still work in the A minor key. You might get a bit of a sense of a key change, and that's because I'm really hammering the D here, so it's like D, 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 to really establish that D is our new tonic, our new first note of the D minor scale. And then that's also done in the bass here. So I'm really like hitting it hard on that first note that, all right, we're in D now. So it's weird, simultaneously making it ambiguous, but then also hitting it hard at the same time. And that creates this sound. By this point, because all the notes have been transposed up to the kind of the D minor equivalent of what we already had, that's when our minds, our inner ears, really kind of latch on. Okay, we're in a new key here. And so we need to switch back to our A minor here. So the way I've got it happening so far is just having this last little kind of, let's say melody. It's kind of rolling down back towards the A as the tonic. And like, if we just hear that original A, it doesn't sound like much has changed. But then these last two notes actually give us the sense that we're back in either A minor, or that's when it starts sounding a bit bluesy again. Yeah. So that is essentially the structure, and yeah, like mostly analysis of what's been done so far. Actually, we will look at this second verse just quickly. This is fairly bare bones at the moment, but it is being built up, and I'll show you one other technique I've been doing in here. Okay, so just in that first bit, if we listen to just this, and now this, this bit was originally a copy and paste of this bit, just going from the treble down to the bass, and like so transposed a couple octaves down, but it was the same melody. And then again, I've transformed it. I've added some notes. I've taken some out. I've put some other things underneath here, and then I've changed a few notes to kind of help it flow a bit more. But this is something, and I don't actually know the name for the technique, but basically it's kind of something where you play a melody or a theme in a high register or a low register, and then you play it in the other one, and you kind of have this bouncing echo effect. You can have them slightly overlapping, or you can have them spaced apart so they're not playing at the same time. But this is just another kind of technique that can be helpful for either if you're stumped for, what do I write next, or also for adding some flourish to what's happening. And you'll notice so far in this verse, I don't know if I'll keep it like this. In this intro, I'm just calling a verse. There's no real chords here going on. It's more actually two melodies sort of going on. A bit more of a counterpoint sort of thing, but with a bluesy feel, a bit more kind of rhythm to it. Yeah, I like this bit specifically. Almost happened by accident when I was playing with some of the rhythms. I don't know. To me, that just reminds me of the the game centers, the slot machines in Pokemon games. I have to look that up afterwards. I would show you now, but I'll probably get copyright striked and get my channel banned or something. Go look it up. Pokemon Game Corner. Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially analysis of everything in the piece so far. So what do we got? We got 15 minutes left. I'll just see how we go. It's hammer time. It's hammer time. I don't know if that's a reference to some of the bluesy things that are going on, but it reminds me of a blues a cappella song I once learnt called "This Old Hammer." This old hammer killed John Henry. Go look that up. Yeah, maybe. Yes, it's hammer time. So I'm just thinking about what I want to work on next now in this project. And before I started the stream, I was actually just working on this very first bit. So I'm working on some of these chords here. So I'll just listen to it. And actually, the very last thing I did before I went live on the stream was actually this last bit. And that is, as we were just describing, you have something happening in the right hand and then going on the left hand. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's not the same notes, but it's the same movement. So, or is it the same notes? Yeah, not quite. So I just want to make that stronger, because it starts quite strong because we've got chords going. So, and I'll go back and play a bit more because it helps me kind of get into the feel of what the listener would be hearing. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna almost double the movement of this melody. So I'm going to take off this tie, so this... Oh, now that needs to be maybe a fourth or a fifth interval here. So let me just work that out. So what's that? D, G. That I do like that, but almost changes the blues sound of it. So that's another thing we can do, is it doesn't have to follow the steps exactly, but roundabouts. This might work better as some chords, so we're going to add some in. And if I stop talking, it's because I'm focusing. In Notion, if I hold Shift and go up and down, I can add these accidentals, so sharps or flats, to go out of the key signature, which did not sound good. That kind of sounds a bit better. So that's just those fourths moving down on the top end. What does it sound like as thirds? Yeah, that sounds a bit better. So it's a third and then a fourth and then a fourth on them. Maybe we can do something with the bass as well. We want to keep those bass notes. So if I just add it above, what was it, a third and then a fourth and a fourth? All right, we're going to leave it like that for now. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take out these extra ones because what we're going to do is have these top ones a bit quieter, but these bottom ones still quite loud. And we're going to do that with some of these Loudness Dynamics. So what are we in? We're in mezzo piano, which is kind of soft. We're going to go up to mezzo forte on the bass, but we're going to go even quieter, which is piano at the top. So what does this sound like? Even quieter, I reckon. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Cool, so let's listen from the start. Because we do chords here, it might be nice to have kind of a chord at the end. Here and here. I think we might keep chords the whole way through. We're getting some nice dissonance there. Which sounds cool, but it sounds very different to everything else. Maybe not for every single one. Maybe if we copy this, just to have that kind of make it a bit more rhythmic. I'm going to leave that there for now, and I'll take a look later. As you can see, it can get very finicky, but I mean, I love it. And this is another reason I'm choosing to do composition first in this case, is because that way it's almost super focusing on the composition. Let's get these notes sounding really good and the rhythm sounding really good. That way I know once I start putting on the sound effects, it's going to sound good either way. And then sound effects only can enhance that or enhance painting the picture that you're trying to paint, enhance telling the story that you're trying to tell, or the emotions and all that. So, yeah. I'm going to work on that second verse intro now, just to beef it up a bit more like the first one, and probably have it a bit more similar to the first one so it doesn't sound like a completely different section. So probably a few more chords. And I want to get them on some of the kind of strong notes that can kind of feel here. So what is that? That's a move that across. We want it a bit softer. That first bass note, just to add some thickness. Is that working? Oh no! Where'd you go? Sometimes these notation programs just shoot things in random directions. Oh, it's not even moving that back now. Okay, cool. We'll start over here then. Whatever you say. Oh, and our note's gone red here because I've added one too many. Okay, let's go back down here because I added one too many. Like I made the length too long on the notes. That should be quieter. Maybe I have to start here for it to be quiet. Okay, I'll look a bit later why that piano is not doing much. I want something happening up top here. Oh, let's try some triplets. I haven't done any of those yet. So what is that? It's A, but we'll have them really high. So. If we do this one, then where are they? Here. I think I've got to do, in Notion, I think I've got to do several of them first. You do something like this. Tuplets make tuplet. No? How do we do it? I haven't done this before yet in this program. There you go. It's a 3. I mean, that sounds a little odd, but you know, what happens when you put it here? You know what? We're gonna remove them as tuplets. And now we're going to try it on them here. What does this sound like? Because we can do 2 lots of those in here. Then we'll want those to be 3. What do we want? I want these outside. Ooh, tuplets. Remove tuplet. What happens if we then make a tuplet out of these? What does this sound like? So it kind of gives a bit more flourish up the top. In fact, if we raise this an octave as well, make it quite quiet, just briefly, and then so piano. What does it sound like? Yeah, so it just adds a bit of flourish. Anyway, it's 1 o'clock, which means we've hit the hour. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let's just see how everyone's doing here. Yep, cool. Yeah, so this week was notation, obviously, a bit different to production. Not sure what we'll be doing next week yet, but keep in touch on the John Oestmann Music Facebook page to see what we will be doing. You can view previous streams either on the Facebook page or here on the YouTube channel. And I will see if I can find a way to get the Facebook videos that I've already done onto YouTube. And so hopefully you can see them here as well. Otherwise, all going well, I will see you next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Adelaide time. And apart from that, you have a good week. I will catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.